Hello, and today I'm going to be talking about my small collection of Famicom games that I've gathered over the years. A lot of them I just took a punt on, as you never know if you're going to be able to play them or not because of the language barrier, but that's the good thing about this generation of games. Barring RPGs, most of the games don't require much text to play. I'm going to be playing them mainly on my Retron 5 as I'm far too lazy to get an actual Famicom, but bear in mind my Retron 5 is a bit shit and the Famicom port is a little bit dodgy, so some of the games may have some graphical problems, only slight problems like the sprites looking a bit weird. Though anyway, let's take a look at them in alphabetical order. First off we have Arabian Dream, word I'm not going to try to pronounce. I just don't know how to say it. I got this game in a bundle of Famicom games with two others if I remember rightly, and sadly it's one of those games that I really struggled to figure out what to do in because of the language barrier. I couldn't figure out what to do or where to go, I couldn't seem to talk to anyone or attack. As soon as I got to a screen with enemies I would just get murdered. I tried jumping on them, I tried the other buttons, but they don't seem to do anything. There was a village at the start, but I went around the whole thing and I couldn't find any sort of weapon or anything. There might have been one in one of these shop things, but I couldn't quite figure it out. Which is a shame, because this game kind of looks interesting. It's like a top-down Zelda type game, from what I can gather. There's a big map, and it looks like there's a lot to it. It kind of reminds me of Mystical Ninja on the Super Nintendo, so that's definitely not a bad thing. I wish I could just figure it out. I mean, maybe when I get a new Retron, if I get a new Retron, or something that I can use translation patches on, I'll give it another bash and maybe I'll really enjoy it. I really hope so, it looks cool. Book of Sukkah Wars. Now, this is a game you can figure out as there's no text to worry about, it's just straight up gameplay. But sadly, it's not really that great of a game. You play this little general guy and you've got to go through a stage gathering units by shaking trees and bushes. So in a way, it's kind of like an old school real-time strategy game without a lot of strategy. You have to work your way to the end of the stage and beat all the enemies, and then finally you gotta beat their general. The control of your general is often very delayed. It feels like you have to push the directional button multiple times before your general will even do anything. When the simplest thing in a game, the controls, is messed up, you know you're in for a rough time. But I'm honestly not sure if it's the controls or just the game itself that is laggy. The battles themselves are literally just you running into the enemy and then waiting to see who's won. There doesn't seem to be much rhyme or reason to it. I mean, I'm being a little bit harsh, as in terms of other games of this generation, it's definitely trying something different. But I just don't think it's executed well enough to bother playing these days. Surprisingly, there was a port of the second game released on the PS4 for some bizarre reason. Maybe I need to check that out, because maybe it's miles better than this one. It might be worth looking into later. Now, I already know I'm going to butcher this name, I'm going to try my best. Aiki Aiki Neketsu Hokibu. Jesus, my pronunciation of these games is pretty bad. Anyway, I'm trying my best, I promise. This game is, as you can tell by the name, an ice hockey game. It's in the same series as the Crash and the Boys game on the NES, and you can tell by the graphics style and the fun, arcadey gameplay. These are my favourite types of sports games. The fun, easy to play, you know, anyone can pick it up and play kind of game. It controls and plays a lot like Blades of Steel, which is another game I really love on the NES. But this game adds a little bit more to that formula. You can do different types of shots, a charged up shot, a quick shot, and a shot where you flip the puck in the air and smack it out of the air. And these things definitely give it an edge over Blades of Steel, I'd say. But it's definitely a game worth buying if you've got a Famicom. Jajamaru no Daboken. This is a game in a series that's exclusive to the Famicom that I have free of for whatever reason. I'm pretty sure I got them all bundled together at a local game shop on the cheap. And they're definitely all of varying quality. This one is probably the one I enjoy the most out of the three. It's a simple side-scrolling platformer where you're, of course, trying to get to the end of the level. You play like a little red ninja like you do in all the games in the series, and you have little throwing stars for a weapon. There's a few different power-ups that you can get. It's quite difficult, but it controls well enough, and you generally feel like it's your fault when you die. You only get like 3 deaths before it's game over, as you know, to be expected of a game of this time. But it's not a bad game by any means. Just a bit simplistic. It kind of feels like a clunky version of Mario or something. Worth a play. Mighty Bomb Jack. I feel like I might be missing something with this title, as I just don't find it the least bit enjoyable, and I've actually heard people praise this game before and say it's pretty good, which is the only reason I bought it. You just sort of go around the levels collecting treasure with an extremely floaty jump that isn't enjoyable to control. You do get a sort of flutter down mechanic from the peak of your jump, but that doesn't feel nice to control either. And from what I've played so far, you don't seem to be able to attack enemies, so you're just left trying to dodge them with an annoying to control floaty jump. And to me, that's just not fun, but it does have some nice music, so that's a plus, I guess. Not for me. Ninja-kun Majo no Boken. This is another game in the series of games about a little red ninja dude that goes around throwing metal stars at people. This game, unlike the other game I just looked at, is a vertically scrolling game where you try to work your way to the top of the level. And you've got to make sure you take out all the enemies before you can move on. The controls take, honestly, a bit of getting used to. You have a jump that you don't really control like you would, say, in a Mario game. You press the button and your character shoots off in the direction you're facing, with you having very little control over where your character is going to land. It sort of goes on an arc, which is very annoying when you're trying to avoid the enemies and kill them. But you still have your trusty throwing stars, and you can also stun the enemies by jumping on them. This isn't a bad game. It's kind of arcade styled, but it's just not that enjoyable in long sessions. But it's not really designed for that, so it's pretty good. Ninja Jajamaru Kun. This is the last game I own in this series of games, and this one isn't half bad either. It kind of reminds me of like an upscaled version of something you'd see on the Atari 2600. You've got one screen, you're trying to take out all the enemies, you got some sort of blocks to take out with your jump, and it's pretty basic. You're just going around the level trying to kill all the enemies and reach the bad guy at the top. You again have your trusty throwing stars and a weird momentum based jump like the last one I just looked at. There's not much to say about this one really that I haven't said about the last one. It's okay, it's fun. Penguin Kun Wars. This is one of the 2 Penguin based Famicom games I picked up because of a wonderful YouTuber, Jew Wario, who is sadly no longer with us. Rest in peace, Justin. And both of these Penguin based Famicom games are a whole lot of fun to play. Penguin Kun Wars is like a weird arcadey sports game type thing where you play a penguin who's facing off against a bunch of animals to prove who's the best at throwing dodgeballs over a ping pong table. I mean, that's essentially what the game is. You and your opponent have to try and get all the balls onto the opponent's side of the table, and if you can't manage that, whoever has the least amount of balls left on their side when the time limit runs out is the winner. You can stun your opponent by hitting them directly with the ball, which buys you some time to throw all the balls to their side. This game is extremely challenging, but a whole lot of fun. I often come back and play this game when I just have 30 minutes to kill. It will certainly take you a while to master this game and beat the game's main tournament mode, which is pretty much the only mode in the game, but it's good, simple, arcadey fun. What more could you ask for? Princess Tomato in the Salad Kingdom. Now I've got to admit, I picked this one up based solely on its absolutely ridiculous name, and the cover art, which was equally ridiculous. But when I got around to playing it, I found it was kind of impossible to play without knowing Japanese. From what I can gather, it's some sort of point-and-click adventure game type thing. Not entirely sure though, because I couldn't really get anywhere because all the text is in Japanese. From what I can gather, there is an American version, which I might try and track down at some point, because this game looks ridiculous, and I really enjoy ridiculous, weird games. So that's really all I can say on this one. May Penguin Monogatari. This is the last game in my small Famicom collection, and it's probably my favourite out of the games. I knew I was going to love the game the minute I heard the premise of this weird little game. You play a overweight penguin who has been dumped by his girlfriend because he's put on too much weight, and she's left you for another penguin, and you take him on his journey to lose weight and get her back. Just saying, if I was that penguin, I'd be like, fuck you bitch, if you're going to leave me for another man because I got fat, go do one. But sadly our protagonist doesn't seem to have that common sense. This game is a side-scrolling platformer that kind of reminds me of Kirby in its presentation. It's quite cutesy. And as you go through the game, the new lover of your ex has sent out minions to try and stop you from losing weight. The enemies in the game kind of throw fattening food at you, and you have to try and drink as many slimming shakes as you can to keep your fat down. The fatter your character gets, the harder it is to control him. And if you get to the end of the stage and you're too fat, you won't be able to move on, and this superficial bitch won't take you back. There's also side-scrolling shooter sections where your cute little fat penguin will take to the skies in a little tiny cute plane, and you'll have to work your way through the level trying to stay thin like you do in the other levels. Altogether, this game is a great deal of fun, and it's just the right amount of challenging, and I'm glad I bought it. Thanks, Justin. I still miss you and your videos every day. And that's it for my Famicom collection. As I said at the top, I don't really have that many, but in the future I'd definitely like to add some more games to my collection, like Devil World, which is one I really want. I would also like to get an actual Famicom system, as my Retron 5 is quite frankly shit. The Super Famicom SNES port is broke somehow, and the Famicom slot seems to be on the way out, but I'm never getting another Retron anyway. Thanks for watching, and I will see you later.